There we go, Tim, and we're live. Welcome everybody to a brand new Ed's Retro Geek Out. Today I'm over here with Tim Clarke, the co-creator of Boglins. He's also worked on lines like Sectaurs, and he's worked on the toy line of Dark Crystal. So, Tim, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing? How are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm fine. It's been a long and crazy day because we did some new videos that we'll be showing on YouTube
Okay.
to help promote the Kickstarter campaign. So
yeah, and the Kickstarter is going great. Congratulations on everybody that's already backing it up. I already went full in, like on getting like one of the bigger ones. I'll maybe be able to open up the Kickstarter for a little while. So let's see what we have over here. There we go. So we got the Kickstarter right here.
Yeah.
Which you can find by just typing in Boglins World Domination.
In euros. How interesting.
Yeah. So
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it all changes it correctly. Yeah. So these were like the videos you were talking about.
Yes.
We already like the backers already got some updates, but is there anything you want to share to people that haven't
about the Kickstarter? Well, the mold costs to do Boglins because of the multiple amount of parts, the arms, the tails, the head, and then the complexity of the eye mechanism. Each one of these large Boglins costs $25,000 to mold. So we've now cleared that level of on the Kickstarter. So we know that we'll be able to produce the first 3 kings plus the Halloween Boglins, Bogabones, and Blobkin.
Yeah.
And now we're on to going into the end of next year. As we get over that $75,000 mark, we will then start to fund the new King Boglins, which there'll be an additional 4. And we're hoping to fund all 4 of those by the end of December, if we're lucky. If not, then we'll make as many as we can, and then probably do another Kickstarter next year to fund the additional Boglins.
Okay.
So
I mean, you already got those 3 down. There's still
all 5
51
of those,
days to go, right?
Well, both Bogabones and Blobkin are basically pulled from the same mold as Vlob and Drool. So all 5 of these are going to be produced. Plus, there are limited edition series of Boglin Kings with they will have new body pigment color and golden horns. And those will be, I think we're only going to do 10,000 of those pieces. So it'll be limited. Those will be a limited edition, and people who back the Kickstarter at that level will be the first to get them.
So those are the Golden Kings. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And what else? I mean, that's pretty much it. It's just different tiers. And then, since this has done so well, we're already planning on, what we're going to do next year at Halloween. There'll be a new, what we call the Dark Lord series, which will be added around the fall of next year. So I think we will have maybe 3 of those. So yeah, Chris, every day, Chris and I are going back and forth. Okay, well, what do we do next? And what how do we expand the line past next year and into 2022? So, we're constantly trying to figure out new ideas on where we're going to take it next. And it's great fun. It's like, this is something I have to say, when Boglins came out by Mattel, I virtually had no, we submitted some ideas as line extensions and ideas for licensing, most of which were never done. And I did come up with the concepts for the Bat Boglins, and
So
they
the
were
night
never
creatures,
produced.
right?
Yeah, the night creature Boglins. So we're hoping, somewhere down the road we'll do those. And but the nice thing is now, because I'm working so closely with Chris, and Maureen, the production of Boglins is in our hands, and we can take it where we want. A lot of the people in the United States don't know about the mini Boglin series, where we established the king, mini Boglin, and the tribes. Like, people are saying to me, "Oh, now you're doing something like Game of Thrones with the 7 kings," but we had established those concepts back in the 90s.
Today I was looking at like a carrying case for the mini Boglins on
Yeah,
eBay.
yeah, and they were
Didn't
all,
pull the trigger on it, but
yeah,
then I start looking at the packs, and indeed it says like there's 3 king Boglins in there, and then like the smaller ones, or the ones that
yeah,
are underneath.
yeah. So basically, in each of the new king series is going to be a piece of the Boglins map, which shows you their territory and gives you inklings into what will come after, as you get each section of the map and you put it together, and who they are and where they came from and all that stuff. So on the back of the card, it will give a description of each of the kings and who they are. So, and the other day I posted on Instagram the original mini king that was never produced, and I still have the molds for that, and I hope to add him to the king series, probably to go with prehistoric Boglins, because he'll be like the really ancient king and the founding of the Boglins hierarchy, basically.
Okay.
So there's lots of things to play with, and because there was never a really strong established TV series or movie or anything, we have a lot of freedom to go off in a lot of directions, and I have a great idea of what I want to do with the samurai Boglins down the road, and I started on my own website, www.totems, TOIMS, which is a play on my name and the idea of totems, and of the Headhunter series and the Amazon Boglins, which we hope to get to also within this series. So, the great thing about mimicking human nature is that the possibilities are endless, where we can go with these.
Yeah, there's like that's what you're saying now. Like the backstory is going to get somewhat unveiled. Before that, you would have something on the back where you'd have like a family tree, and somehow it was connected to humans.
On the back of the box, there will be the family tree on the new box with the 3 new kings, the 3 Halloween Boglins, which there are 2 in existence, but there will be a 3rd coming out next fall, which I'm not allowed to reveal yet what it is.
No.
It's a great deal of fun. Chris said, "Well, what should we do next?" And I threw this idea at it, and he goes, "That's perfect. That's perfect. That's just perfect." And we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. So
that's awesome to hear. Is I actually wanted to start off the interview by going all the way back to what toys you grew up with, or what kind of stuff you played with as a kid, if that's all right to ask.
I have to tell you, my mom thought that TV commercials were an undue influence on kids. So growing up, we were never allowed to buy anything that was advertised on television.
Oh,
So my sister and I used to resort to the Sears catalog to buy toys, because most of those things, there were some toys in there that were publicized on television, but it wasn't back then in, the late 50s, early 60s, when I was a kid. There really wasn't a lot of television advertising for toys, except for maybe right before Christmas. They would be toy companies would be pushing things. I don't, I remember um, I had Pelham puppets, which were made in Europe, that were marionettes, and I loved those. I had Steiff puppets when I was really little. Um, I used to play with just little plastic army men in my backyard, and my brother and I would build snow forts and have, like places where you could roll a ball through the entire snow fort. And
oh yeah.
so we were just doing, and then with my friends in the neighborhood, we built a tank out of cardboard boxes, uh, um, a, the top turret. We got a hat box from somebody's mom, and then we put a cardboard tube out of it as the gun.
It's a tank. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we painted it camouflage, and we would play, because we were all post World War II babies. We would play a lot of, like World War II games, and in our yard, and and if it wasn't that, it was cowboys and Indians and stuff like that. So I don't, I don't have really. I do remember getting for Christmas a bazooka gun that shot plastic missiles that were soft,
Okay.
which would kind of
Yeah.
be like the predecessor to Nerf.
Okay.
But I don't remember getting, I don't remember getting a lot of toys that, um, I have really strong memories of.
But you relied a lot on just your own imagination and role
Yeah,
playing with others.
and building stuff. And my brother and I used to do puppet shows for the kids in the neighborhood to make money, and we would also do haunted houses, around Halloween to make money. And we
Okay.
we got this reputation of, like nobody could make it through our haunted house with turning around and screaming and leaving, because we did a lot of crazy and inventive stuff. And I have to say, I continue that tradition onward. And when my kids were little, when their public school, their grade school, found out that I had worked for Muppets, they asked me if I would do the haunted house for
Okay.
the Halloween party. And I said, yeah, sure, I would love to. And they gave me the school stage. So I took the back curtains. I set the curtains up so that the kids had to walk kind of like in a zigzag between the staging curtains. But in the front series of the curtains, I took the curtains down, and from the chains that held the curtains, I marioneted all these skeletons. And then I
So they
had,
would flow up.
no. So the kids would come around the corner,
Yeah.
and I had somebody pulling the pulleys and the ropes to close the curtains. But instead of curtains, it was skeletons coming at you. And the chains made a noise. So it was terrifying. And like most kids would turn that corner, and it was dark. We dimmed all the lights, the stage lights. And all of a sudden you see these skeletons come chasing across the floor at them. And they would all turn around and run and go off the other end of the stage. Like very, very few kids ever made it, to the end. And so my reputation continued.
Yeah. Yeah, because then I don't know what you studied. I think you did something with sculpting, but somehow you ended up working for Jim Henson.
Yeah, so I majored in art education at Pratt, and in the last semester of my senior year, I took a course on puppetry, which I had been trying to get into every semester, but it was very popular. It was taught by Kermit Love, who designed Big Bird and Snuffleupagus for Sesame Street.
Okay.
And so I got into that class finally in my last semester, and I just was determined to outdo everybody else in the class, because there was a mixture of art students and theater majors and art ed people and whatever. And so I think the first thing I did was a crab, where I used my fingers as the legs and my thumbs as the eyeballs, and I made a hard casing that went over the back of my hands. And Kermit looked at me and he said, "Oh, this is so nice. It's so nice to see somebody making a puppet that isn't this, isn't just another Muppet style move your mouth." He said that you're using your hands in a different way. And I'm holding my phone, so I can't really show you
Oh,
how
yeah.
it worked. But just like the fly hand puppet that I did later on, it was
Yeah.
using your fingers as the legs and what became sectors. So I just kept on doing, very, very different things. And towards the end of the semester, Kermit asked me, what I was doing when I graduated. And I said, well, I'm looking for a teaching job, but there aren't any at the moment. And he said, well, how do you feel about coming and working for me? And I said, oh, I would love to. It would be great. So my first job at working for Kermit, because Kermit had the contract to do the Sesame Street characters for Germany and Mexico, and we did puppets for Kuwait. And it was the start of the expansion of Sesame Street into other countries. So
Okay.
I worked on several of those, and then at the same time, Kermit's original career was designing and building, costumes for ballet companies. So we recreated the Picasso costumes for the ballet Parade, and that was for Joffrey Ballet. And we did like a 20-foot high marionette of the windmill in Don Quixote turning into the monster, and it sprung up from the floor because it was cantilevered flat on the floor. It was all made out of plywood. And then it had a mace, and it swung its arm across the stage. And it was the only time I've ever seen in a ballet the audience applaud for a piece of the set.
Yeah, but it's engineering, right?
No, but
You're doing.
it was amazing that basically the ballet stopped. And when this thing sprung up from the floor and swung this mace across, and it's like came across the stage, people just started clapping, and the dancers weren't quite sure what to do. Like they were like, oh, do we just keep going or do we stop? Like it was very interesting. So,
But the dancers didn't know this was gonna happen,
well,
or
no, they had no idea that the audience was going to react that way.
oh, okay.
So they were you could tell they were a little like, wait, what are we supposed to do now? It's like, so it was cool. It was very, very cool. So we did puppets for TV commercials, and after being there for about a year, and Kermit's work, because it was a freelance studio, it's like sometimes he had work and then other times he didn't have work. So in between, I would make, more puppets for myself, just exploring different things. And after about a year, he said to me, Tim, Jim Henson is starting up a new, like puppet concept at
Okay.
Muppets, and I want you to go up and interview with him. And I said, great, I would love to. So I put all my stuff in garbage bags and got on the subway, and I had an interview with Jim, and I showed him all the different things I had been working on, the fly and the crab and a bunch of other stuff, a big dragon that was like 8 feet long, and, a bunch of a lot of different things. And, he said to me, this is great. Like, I love what you're doing. I love that you're using your hands in different ways, because it ties into what we're going to be doing with this new movie. And they're not going to look like Muppets. They're going to be totally different. And then he said to me, Tim, when can you start working? And I said, tomorrow. And he said, no, I have to talk to HR. And said, why don't you come, next Tuesday, and you can start then. So
the new project, was it Dark
that
Crystal?
was Dark Crystal.
Okay. Because
we didn't call it Dark Crystal till much later, but that was okay, what it was. And Brian Froud, at that time, had gone back to England, I don't know, deal with, personal stuff, or, closing down his life kind of there to move to New York City. And when he came back, then, we started talking about what we wanted to achieve. And Brian started doing drawings, and I started working on the Mystics, and we shot a short at Jim's house in Bedford, New York, that fall. And then he used that as a pitch video to different movie production places. And Lord Lou Grade, who had produced Muppet Show, said, yes, Jim, I'll let you do this. I'll help you. I'll back you this. But eventually he said, I want you to do another Muppet movie, which, then we all went to England to work there and started up a new studio. And then in between, we stopped to work on Great Muppet Caper, and then we went back to working, and plus working on Muppet Show. So there were all these things happening at once.
At the same time.
Jim was nonstop working, just nonstop working, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. He was incredible energy, and very, very driven, what he wanted to do and what he wanted to accomplish. So, and then I ended up working, I think, on Dark Crystal about 2.5 years, maybe a little longer in total. So yeah, it was an incredible experience. And I ended up sculpting all of the Mystics, building the mechanisms in their heads and their hands, or designing them. And then I had
it was already animatronic?
That was the very beginnings of animatronics, for us, so I was sculpting the Mystics' heads and making the cable controlled mechanisms that went into their heads. And then we put air bladders in their throat, so it looked like they were breathing. And we were using foam latex, which really hadn't been used, had always been used as a prosthetic appliance that got applied to people's faces, and not so much as a puppet. And then in the between working on this, then George Lucas came to Jim about creating a character for Star Wars, which everybody knows who that is. And so then a bunch of the people from our Dark Crystal crew started working with Stuart Freeborn on creating Yoda. And that was really cool. It was amazing to be at Elstree Studios while they were shooting Star Wars, and we were working on Dark Crystal, and getting to walk around and see how they approached shooting Star Wars. And working with Yoda and all that kind of stuff. And then at the same time, Great Muppet Caper was being shot. It was crazy. It was crazy, wonderful, hard work, you know.
But it wasn't the last thing you would do for Dark Crystal. You would also go ahead and work for Hasbro's Aviva to create
doing
the toys.
products. But that was, the movie had been shot, it was finished, and I was back in New York working on Fraggle Rock, and it was towards the end of the first season of Fraggle Rock that I sculpted the toys for Dark Crystal, which were never produced. And
because did you start creating the toys really late before the movie was scheduled to release?
The movie hadn't come out yet. And the movie was launched, I think, right before Christmas, probably towards the middle of November of '83, I think. And once Hasbro saw how scary the movie was, they decided that it wasn't going to sell to kids, and so they dropped the toy line. So I have some of the very, very, very few prototypes of the Dark Crystal toys from that series. I think there's probably only maybe a dozen of them in the world, because you know, the art directors had some, I had some, and some of the other people who worked on sculpting them have the prototypes. But other than that, you know, that's the only place they exist. And to tell you the truth, for many years they were just in my kids' toy bin, and then you know, because my kids used to play with them, and then I suddenly realized, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't have these in there anymore, and I pulled them out and put them on shelves. So
did they end up being used for a Super 7 line? Did they end up being used for a line by Super 7 within like the reaction line?
But that was many years later.
Yeah, it's like a couple years ago, right?
Yes, that Funko Super 7 had started doing reaction toys, and they did a new series of Dark Crystal toys, and they were beautiful. They did a beautiful job.
But they weren't the same sculpts as you made.
No, not at all. We were much more limited in what we could do back then, because Hasbro wanted everything to come out of a 2-part mold, which means you know, you can't have any undercuts, you can't have, you know, a lot of detail. So I tried to put in as much as possible, but there's severe limitations. It wasn't until Spawn came out, Todd McFarlane, and he upped the game on action figures and detail, and you know, making them more sculptural and giving them more points of, you know, articulation. Because before that, you know, toy companies were like, oh, nobody's going to ever spend that kind of money on an action figure, you know. And, you know,
they were wrong.
yeah. I mean, Todd McFarlane changed that whole industry. You know, now nobody makes action figures unless they got 24 points of articulation, and you know, they can have hands that they pop off and on, and all these things that have changed completely, and they're a lot more expensive, but you know, people want them that way, so they command the price.
What was your first experience like creating toys? Because beforehand you were like creating puppets and doing all sorts of sculpting as well. Was it really different, or
it's the same thing but working much smaller and with, you know, much stronger glasses? Really. It's just I have to say I really don't enjoy it as much, because you know, like working that small is incredibly time consuming, and toy companies are usually really demanding about sticking to a schedule. And so sometimes I just felt like, I'm not getting to put what I want into this because you're working on under such an extreme deadline, and I would be working 7 days a week, really long days, very long hours trying to get things done, and the other thing is that there was a weird thing, like for GI Joes, let's say, they would never give you a full GI Joe to sculpt. They would give you a left leg, and then they would give another sculptor a right leg, because they didn't want any one toy sculptor having the entire figure. They were afraid that we would make duplicates of it and sell it, black market. So, I ended up doing a lot of left legs for GI Joe, which was really kind of funny.
Okay, but you continue to work on other Hasbro projects then?
I did some work for Hasbro, some for Kenner, and then a lot of other toy companies that don't exist anymore, like Toy Biz and let's see, who else? Ideal in New York, CBS Toys, Knickerbocker, which became Applause. I did a lot of Sesame Street work for them, so all kinds of stuff,
So then a little bit later, maybe you already start working under Seven Towns when you introduced
basically what happened was I was trying to sell different toy concepts, and most of the toy companies would not let me in. Hasbro would see my stuff because I had worked with them, but some of the other toy companies, they said, no, you're either a sculptor, you can't be an inventor and a designer and a sculptor. You have to be one or the other, because they're paranoid about you stealing ideas. There's a lot of paranoia in the toy industry. And I said, well, why would I steal ideas? I want to continue working with you people. I'm not going to, steal ideas and give them to somebody else. You're helping, me survive. I don't know. They just said, no, you have to do one or the other. So then at one of the toy fairs in New York, I noticed in the back of Toy Fair magazine that Seven Towns was representing inventors. So I went to them, and they had done Rubik's Cube, and they had, represented Erno Rubik in creating Rubik's Cube. So I called them up, and I spoke to Art Taylor, who was running the office in New York at that time. And I said, I have a bunch of ideas I want to do for toy products. And he said, no, we don't see anybody from the outside. And I said to him, well, how exactly do you get to design and invent toys if nobody will ever see you? And they said, yes, it's very difficult, but, we have to be very careful that, anybody coming from the outside is not showing us somebody else's idea. And I said, well, I worked for Muppets for 5 years, and I have all these ideas. And that's when they went, oh, you work for Muppets? And then I said, yes. And they said, what did you do? And I said, I worked on Dark Crystal. I worked on Fraggle Rock. I worked on Sesame Street. I worked on making puppets for Muppet Show. They said, all right, fine, come in. And that's when I met with Larry Mass, and Maureen and I had been doing a lot of special effects work for TV commercials. And so we both went in, and we just started, pitching ideas to Larry, about what we wanted to do. And he would go, no, that's not going to work. Like so many things we showed him, and he just rejected them. And then I pulled out the fly hand puppet that I had made for the Halloween party. And he said, oh, this is brilliant. We can put an action figure on the back of this, and the kid will be able to control, the insect. And, so that became Sectaurs. And Coleco, when they saw it, bought it like right away. It was like, there was no doubt.
So you finalized somewhat of the idea or the concept within 7 towns, and then you presented it to different
Yeah,
toy
then we made
companies?
some Maureen and I made more prototypes and drawings, and then it was presented to Coleco at Toy Fair. I think it was February of maybe '84, and they came out in, or maybe it was 80. No, yeah, I think it was '84 or '85, and they came out in '86 or
Okay.
something like that. It's too long ago for me to remember all the.
It's okay. No
So
problem.
so yeah, so that was the first toy that I ever developed,
So
and
you created it, you saw it come to the shelves, and then
yeah,
you
yeah,
thought,
yeah,
I'm gonna make another
and
monster
I have
for
to
this
tell
toy
you,
line.
like going back to my childhood, when it when we went to Toy Fair, they said, "Well, we'll show a video of how they work," and I said, "No, we'll do a live black black light puppet theater." And they said, "Well, what?" I said, "Well, we'll make this little puppet stage. We'll have
Yeah.
black curtains. We'll have the puppeteers all in black, like uh, they do in Japan, and we'll have the action figures and the insects, flying across the stage and flying around." And it was like, "Oh, that's a great idea." Like to this day, it's amazing that they let us get away with it. But I cannot tell you the amount of people who, these toy exec, it's like the funny thing about going to Toy Fair in some ways is like in New York at that time, you'd walk through the hallways and it would be all these buyers in gray suits and white shirts and red ties, looking very conservative. And, it's like they could have been buying car parts for, like the amount of enthusiasm they had about what they were seeing. And I have to say, later on, I was out in the hallway after this, the show would run for, I don't know, just a few minutes. And I'm standing out in the hallway, and these guys came out of the exit door because we were the last exhibit. And they walked into the hallway, and they were just like little kids. They were like, "How did they make those things move? Did you see that? They were flying around. Like, how did they do that?" It was great that, here this really old puppet trick, just worked so
Yeah.
effectively. And so the reaction, it was great to just hang out in the hallway, because they didn't know who I was, and just listen to them come out of the showroom and just go, "Man, those things are incredible. Those are really amazing, blah, 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 blah.
And that's probably the thing they remember when they go home at night and be like, oh, we have to get those toys in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
And then
yeah.
you created another villain type toy idea for Sectaurs.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, it was, the good guys against the bad guys. And it's always like the play pattern for little boys. So it was Dargon and Spydrax
yeah,
and a bunch of different other, characters. And one was a tarantula, Trancula, and, you know, um, we had great fun, So, yeah. And we're, Maureen has been working on a new comic book series to take Sectaurs into, update it and bring it in, make it more contemporary. And we're hoping to get that out soon. We have a publisher lined up. So,
yeah, they're saying in the comments that Sectaurs would be an amazing live action show. So,
yeah. Yeah. Well, we were supposed to do a movie.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had gone to California back in the 80s to shoot a movie, but Coleco had spent so much money and lost so much money on Atom Computers that they couldn't afford to continue. And they called us back after we were working for about 6 weeks on film production and said, "We can't go forward." And Universal was going to put up half the budget for the movie, and
Oh,
Coleco couldn't do it. So that was the end. And then we kind of knew when they called us back, oh, that they're not doing well financially, and this is probably going to be the end. So I think they had designed the second year of Sector stuff, but
Yeah, which had like a Spydrax in white, different colors and stuff like that.
yeah, Spydrax as a night fighter, and there was one character that I had designed that rolled up into a ball, so you could roll them across the floor and knock things down. And then there was Stellara, who was going to be the new female character, and another one that looked kind of like a snake, and I can't even remember them all now, but they never were produced, and of course now the prototype models sell for ridiculous prices on eBay. There's a lot of guys who every once in a while I get a call. Hey, Tim, do you want to sell any of your prototypes? I said, no, I'm not selling any.
Yeah. Yeah, I get why they're calling, but yeah, you better hold on to those because well, they're toy history,
Yeah, well, part of my retirement plan.
Oh, that too, of course.
Like I'll ever retire. It's like somebody said, "You are going to retire from what?" I'm doing what I love to do. It's like, and I especially now with, with Boglins being so popular on the Kickstarter and it getting funded, it's it's like it's great to be able to expand your imagination and keep growing and playing and developing new concepts, and yeah, it's one.
Do you know if there was any footage created during the filming of the
No, we never got
Sectaurs?
that far. We had started building the stop motion insects that were small, and then at the same time we were building welded frameworks for the large insects, so that the actors would be able to jump on their backs and make believe they were flying off, and then we would switch to the miniatures. But that's as far as we got. It just we never even shot a single foot of film, unfortunately.
No test footage or anything like
No,
that.
no, I don't remember anything. I mean, there may have been, but I don't remember any of it.
And then you started creating the first Boglins, which you also pitched for Sectaurs, right?
Yeah, well, we pitched it to Coleco, but not as part of Sectaurs. They wanted to do it as part of Sectaurs, and thank God they didn't, because they ended up discontinuing Sectaurs. Plus, the prototype they did looked nothing like Boglins, and it was horrendous. And Maureen and I were just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is a disaster. So when they didn't move forward, we were very glad. And then Larry Mass showed our prototype Boglins. We got them back from Coleco. He showed it to Mattel, and to quote the executive at Mattel, he said, this has been staring us in the face for I don't know how many years, and I can't believe we never did something like this. And they immediately bought it. So, and the Dwark, who's one of the Boglins, looks almost exactly like the prototype that I sculpted and built for Boglins.
Where did you draw the inspiration from to create the Boglin like they look?
Well, having worked on Dark Crystal, I made them out of foam latex, so it's very malleable and very expressive. And then I had built the eye mechanism so that it would blink, and then I had also created a mechanism so that he could reach out and grab things with his hand, but they ultimately decided that would be too expensive to do. So that's another thing that we're hoping to do, down the road with a new line, is, explore some of the more animatronic things that we wanted to do back then that we couldn't because they weren't.
What I read was there was supposed to be like a lever in the tail that would allow the hands to.
So if you squeeze his tail, his hand would grab things.
Okay.
And the whole idea was that they were be able to, grab action figures and then, chew their heads off or whatever. It's like they were supposed to be wonderful little horrible monsters, which they became.
Definitely. Um, what do you think the main value proposition was for marketing these toys over at Mattel?
What do you mean? How did they market them? They
Yeah,
didn't market. Well,
why did they
the
completely go
TV
for it right
commercial
away?
did it for them, and the big thing is they didn't want to call them puppets. That's why they called them the outrageous creatures that come alive in your hand, because they thought calling them puppets would skew it to too young an audience, and it was too, monstrous looking to go to, that young kids weren't going to watch.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, the video that we did recently for the Kickstarter of them, coming after me at the picnic table, the Boglins kind of scaring me and attacking me and all that stuff. It's really funny because my granddaughter is 1.5 years old, and my son was showing it to her, and I was like, "Oh my God, Bishan!" It's like, I can't believe you're showing that to her. She's gonna get terrified, Oh, well.
I think we just lost the connection. Let's see if it'll pop back up, and let's check out some of the comments over here. So yeah, it's really sad. No test footage exists indeed of the Sectaurs movie they were gonna do. That's something we still need to ask. Boglin Comics. Not sure about that. I think they were going to include like the maps of the of like the family tree and have like more descriptions added to that. The creator of the G.I. Joe left leg. That's something I didn't know, that he was still working like on other projects that Hasbro was doing.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
No problem at all. No problem at all. I kind of forgot where we were in the story, honestly.
Let's see.
The marketing for the
Yeah.
toys.
So basically, they just said, they 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 we Maureen's husband Dwayne had come up with the idea for the crate box, and they loved the idea of it being able to be manipulated inside the box, and also that just the play value that came out of the foam latex and having the eye mechanism and the kids being able to control this little monster that was their own. So and I think that's why they're still so popular, is because there wasn't a TV show, there wasn't a film. Kids got them, and then it was up to the kids to, make up the story and how they played with them. And a lot of kids named, their Boglin. They had a special name for him, and
Yeah.
it made it personal to them. And it shows now, with the popularity of the Kickstarter and how quickly it funded, that how many people have such really fond memories of playing
When
with.
did you start to notice that Boglins was really taking off during those 2 years it ran in the USA? Because
Yeah,
like was it an immediate success when it hit the shelves?
yeah, it did really, really well, and to this day I still don't understand why Mattel discontinued them. But many people have told me that this is one of Mattel's like weaknesses or inability to know how to expand a toy line and keep it going and keep it, innovative and interesting, which they could have relied on us to do that for them, but they never even approached us. It's like here they bought a concept, they licensed it, they realized that it was special, but then they had very little or limited contact with us after they bought the license to take it. And the amazing thing is now that back then Surge Licensing, who did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles after Boglins, a few years after Boglins, they had the license, they had the licensing rights for all the secondary product. And Mark Friedman at Surge had lined up all these licenses, like 20 of them, at least back then, within a few months. And then Mattel said to us, no, we want all that secondary licensing right. And they took it back, and then they did absolutely nothing with it. They did absolutely nothing. I think they licensed Don Post's mask and maybe a T-shirt or something. Just like nothing. They went nowhere with it. So it's just funny that after 30 years now, Mark and Serge are back, helping us to expand Boglins and in licensing. So they're going to be handling all of that. And so
But during the time at Mattel, you did feature like the Night Creatures, the Soggy Boglins, and
I had done drawings for Soggy Boglins. Maureen and I had both done new concept ideas as to where to take Boglins, and one of them was the Bat Boglin, which basically they just took the large Boglins and stuck wings on them. The Bat Boglin that I had designed was more of a amalgamation of a bat and a Boglin. And when I started producing them again myself, I actually went back to my old drawings and did something more like what I wanted them to be. I thought,
I remember those. Yeah.
Soggy Boglins are I think better realized than the Bat Boglins were, because the Soggy Boglins, take on another
shape or another
form and look like an amalgamation of a frog or a lobster and a boglin, or a frog and a boglin. And I'm really glad that Chris agreed to do the new one, Swag, as the king of the Soggy Boglins, which is going to be great fun. So
yeah, but there's no pictures available yet of that one, right?
Of Swag, he's on my website because I started producing him myself.
Oh, so he's on there. Yeah.
But now he will be bigger, and he'll have the eye mechanism in him, and but he'll look he'll still look similar. He'll just be larger in scale and have moving eyes and the 3 horns as a king. So should be great fun.
But in the meanwhile, the Boglins toy line kept going in Europe.
Yes, after
and they did like loads of different spin-offs.
Mattel basically had it for like 2.5 years. Then they decided not to go forward, even though they had, supposedly $7 million in sales going into the next year, and they declined it. And 7 Towns took the rights back and went to Ideal Los Ayres in the UK. I think it was Ideal Los Ayres was a joint venture between a UK company and a French company, toy company. Okay. And so then they took on Boglins, and that's when we got into doing, wacky wall walker boglins, the boglins and slime, the and that was the beginning of mini boglins, which Maureen and I sculpted almost all of the first few years of mini boglins. So that was challenging and fun.
Those were a lot of mini boglins you did back then.
Yeah, it's just I think they ended up being over 100 different characters of mini boglins. So, and I'm hoping to play with those ideas again now with the new series, as well as a few years ago, I think it was 4 years ago now, I did a series of mini boglins with Clutter Gallery, and they were the zombie boglins. So I'm looking forward to expanding on that concept too.
Okay. There was also a Christmas boglin that
I
you
wanted
presented?
to do one because the Halloween boglins were so successful. I said to Mattel, well, why don't we do a Christmas boglin? No, that will never sell. I said, well, but it's so silly and goofy. Of course it'll be funny and it'll sell. And no, they never did it. And I also even wanted to do like a spoof Easter Bunny boglin, which I mocked up, and I said, Tim, no, it's too short a selling period. We can't sell in that, a market, that short, so.
Well, it would have been great to see like an Easter bunny fused with a boglin.
Yeah, I mean,
to
it was
life.
ridiculous and silly. But I thought it was funny and that it would work great, but they said no. And I'm used to that. So
Okay.
who knows?
And then
maybe one day there will be an Easter Bunny boglin.
maybe plans for the next Kickstarter campaign.
Who knows at this point.
So in the 2000s, GT did a revival.
Action GT brought out. Unfortunately, they didn't have any budget for television commercials, so they were launched in the U.S. and they were launched in Europe, but nobody knew they were on the shelves, so they didn't sell. So it didn't last long. Unfortunately,
they're also made of like a different type of rubber or like a different type of skin because they crack really easily.
Yeah, I think that it isn't so much the rubber. I think the paint that they applied to the rubber reacted because they seem to crack where the paint has been applied. It's unfortunate, but sometimes you don't know those things until years later. Toy companies don't think about like making toys that are going to last for 50 years. It's when you're selling toys to kids, you think, oh great, they'll have something to play with for the next couple of like 2 years maybe, or 3 years at the most. It's not something that they look to have this long lasting product.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe now more so because toy collecting has become such a big thing that maybe toy companies now are more aware of that and are making higher quality stuff. But
yeah, but still, like creating toys is something we've been doing in the last 50 years, something like that. So like now we're just seeing like what this plastic does.
I mean, if you go back to ancient Egypt, they were making things for kids to play with, but
I meant mass produced
in the 1800s
plastics.
there were lots of metal and tin toys, and I was just looking recently at an auction and I had some really nice old metal toys, but they seem to have gone out of favor, but some of them were really amazing.
Okay.
So
but
who knows?
You mean like the tin toys from the
40s, tin toys,
and
then metal toys that had action and just there's some nice old concepts which I think could be revamped and made new. Just looking at, in fact, quite a while ago, I worked with one of the guys from Muppets who was really ingenious at making mechanisms, much better than I ever was. And I did a duck in a bathtub, and when you hand cranked there was a crank at the end of the bathtub, and when you cranked it, fish would pop up,
Yeah.
out of the bathtub, out of the water, and the duck, kind of goes backwards. And the last sequence is an alligator who comes up and eats one of the fish and goes back into the tub. And it would just run in a
Repeat
continuous
itself.
Yes. And a lot of Disney wanted me to do a whole series of them. And they said, if you make them, we'll buy them. And I said, well, I don't have the money to make these, because it would have been, like a higher end market. And so they were never produced, unfortunately, but who knows? Maybe someday.
So after Action JT, like a short revival, you've basically been creating Boglins custom, like custom orders, or
then well, I worked for I kind of stopped trying to produce toys myself. It became more and more difficult because toy companies were just looking for big Hollywood licensed characters that were driven by films or television, and independent designers were having harder time of selling properties. So I just said, well, this isn't working out, and my kids were getting close to going to college. So I started working for a small toy company in New Jersey called EK Success, which I designed a lot of stuff for them. I was there for I think 6 or 7 years. And then after that, I went to work for Melissa and Doug Toys, and I did a lot of wooden toys. I designed all their hand puppets. And a bunch of games and all kinds of stuff. So, and then once my kids were out of the house and out on their own, I decided to go back to doing toy products myself and designing and developing them. And that's when I started. First, I did some stuff with my son with a traveling puppet show, which was he was
back to the roots.
So my son wrote the script, produced it, and directed it, and I made the puppets. And so we started playing around with puppet ideas from that. And then I said, like a lot of people were contacting me via the internet and asking me, when I was going to bring Boglins back. And I said, well, it's not that easy. It's a very, it's expensive. I mean, $25,000 per mold per Boglin. It's a lot of money to put out, to make it come about. And Chris Gaffoni, who is working with me, had Boglins when he was a kid, and he said, Tim, we got to bring Boglins back. We got to figure out a way to do it, And so finally, he said, I will do the sales and marketing end, and run the company. He said, you do the design work and the development, and, let's go. Because he had seen what I had been doing and the new ones that were, I'm just hand making them myself because I couldn't figure out a way to come up with the money to make them. And
yeah, it's
here he comes.
I got this
Yeah,
one right
that's the
here.
angler. That's
Yeah,
Snog, the anglerfish boglin that I did. So
yeah. So he's awesome.
thank
Came
you.
all the way over to Belgium
Yeah,
without uh like any harm or anything.
yeah.
Looks amazing.
Thank
Um
you.
yeah, so that was really cool to be able to get one of these. Um is this the same material that the newer ones are going to be made of, or
No, no. Um, that is a um, the boglins I'm making by hand are made out of a vinyl that I worked with a plastics company to produce, so that it's something that I can pour myself and doesn't have to be injection molded.
okay,
Um,
yeah.
so it's very time consuming, but I've had a great time doing them. And the new boglins are going to be made out of TPR, which is a newer synthetic rubber, which has much better elongation and strength. Like you can take this stuff and like stretch it out like 6 or 7 inches, and it just goes right back to what it was. So the original boglins were made out of craton, which uh, has its limitations because it kind of breaks down after 35, 40 years. It's funny, some of them have held up really well, some of them have not, and I think it's due to the fact that the original boglins were made out of craton and they were made in Mexico, and I don't know that the quality control over the material itself was that great in Mexico, which is why Mattel probably stopped producing toys in Mexico. Um, so if they had too much plasticizer added to them, um, I think those are the ones that have gone goopy. Certainly, if you kept your boglin in your car in ultraviolet light,
Yeah.
yeah, they were going to deteriorate much faster. And like guys, they're constantly, oh, I went home to my parents' house and I went up in the attic and my boglins are all melted to goop. And I said, yeah, well, you expose them to 140-degree heat, for an entire summer over several years. Yes, they're going to break down. So, but
Mine are like tucked away up there.
what? Oh,
You
your
probably can't
originals?
see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, are the European ones also made in Mexico, or is
No,
that?
no, no. They were then the European ones were made in China, but I think they were made in Craton for quite a long time. Then I think they switched to some type of vinyl synthetic rubber for the ones that were made in 2000. I'm not really sure when the productions switched materials and what was produced, because unfortunately we were not kept up to date on a lot of that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, like like I haven't seen any that have turned to goop over here. But then again, I don't buy the ones that
yeah,
are like scratched or
no,
messed
I
up.
know. So you never know. You never know. It all depends on how they were stored. I mean, because the ones I still have, I mean, I put them up in my attic years ago with the idea that I would give them to my grandchildren, and
Yeah.
they're still fine. But then I had other ones that were in the basement that didn't fare well. So it's hard to know what the difference is or
I have
why.
noticed that some of them seem to have caught like some type of mold on them, but
Really,
yeah,
you
yeah.
must have really special boglins.
I don't know, like it was
I
one
know
I bought
it's
over at a
just
flea
funny, like
market and was like, it's a
guys,
boglin, but it's got
say,
all
how
these
do I
black
clean
dots
them
on
and
it.
how do I preserve them and all that stuff? And I said, well, you can come clean them with dishwashing liquid, and what is it? The uh, OxyClean seems to work well on it. And But I kind of like them when they get dirty. The ones I have, they get grungy, but I just think them makes them look more like boglins.
Gives them some more
I mean, they came
patina.
up out of the bog. They're not supposed to be, like these clean, fastidious creatures. They're supposed to be, but it's like everybody has, their own way of looking at it. Toy collectors want their stuff to be pristine, and to me, it's still about them being toys, and manipulating them and having fun and, expressing. And as Chris says now, he said, what I want to do now, because of the access of the internet, is that give, kids the joy of creating content, like now everybody can make their own little Boglin, videos and movies. And so we're going to be, asking people once they come out, or even now, to start sending us, the videos, and we'll start posting them on YouTube and sharing them, and, sharing the joy of, playing with them.
Yeah.
And
I
I've
mean,
seen some,
I put them in videos all the time, actually.
yeah, no, and I've seen, some really great things. Some people have done some really wonderful things with them. Even little kids, I really enjoy watching little kids, doing their Boglin videos. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I have like a room filled with toys, and whenever
Yeah,
my 4-year-old daughter comes in, she wants to
yeah,
play with the Boglins.
really.
Yeah, she's
Oh,
like, look,
that's wonderful.
they're little babies, and their eyes move. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So she's always like, I want to play with that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's nice to
Yeah,
hear.
even though, like you were saying before, like you might think they'd get frightened, but if it's something they already know from when they were kids, it's not frightening to them, I think.
Yes, yes, and
Yeah.
and plus, they're in control of it. It's not something that's coming, that's external. It's something that becomes part of them. So it's not something to be afraid of, because you're controlling the monster. The monster isn't, after you or scaring you. It's like you're manipulating the monster, which gives you the, the power of expression. So yeah, it's great. It's
Yeah.
great. All that stuff that was wonderful about playing with puppets when I was a kid, it's still all there. The magic is still there. And all the fun of working on stuff at Muppets and being crazy and doing silly things, I mean, if you watch the new video that we did for the Kickstarter, it's so ridiculous and over the top, but people love it. And, we had a great time doing it. And today they came over to shoot some more stuff. And, it's like, I always think when I can get the director of a video laughing so that he can't shoot the scene,
Yeah.
then I'm doing, a good job. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're amazing. So
thanks.
it's lovely to get all the updates as well.
Yeah.
For like perhaps for like buyers from overseas, I don't know if you know it, but we got like an update, like because I'm buying it from Europe, which means there's like a pretty big fee of shipping in there.
Yeah.
But
I know.
I got like a mail saying,
Don't
like,
worry, good news is coming.
it might depend on which distributors you're gonna get.
Yes. Chris has been working really hard to find distributors in throughout Europe and the UK and Australia, and also Canada is coming on board soon, we hope. So don't worry, you guys are all going to get some great surprises.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, Tim, I want
If it
to
all
thank you
falls
so
into
much, man.
place, that we have an idea about how we're going to resolve this, and so the shipping will not be so expensive moving forward, and everybody who's already ordered, you're going to get some good special things. So because it's like Chris and I were flabbergasted. It's like how well this thing is doing, and we want people. It's like somebody said to me today, I really want Boglins, but they're so expensive. And this was a person in the US. And I said, what are you talking about? They're only $40. They're not that expensive. And he said, oh, I didn't realize you were doing them on Kickstarter. I've been looking at eBay and the prices are absurd. And I said, yes, well, we want people to be able to get them and afford them and enjoy them. It's, yeah, we could be selling them at eBay prices, but that's kind of counterproductive. It's not, then it's not something that little kids can play with. And that's why we wanted to do them again, because so many people who are older now said, I really want them for my kids to play with. And the price they are on eBay, you can't buy them for your kid.
Yeah.
They said,
true.
that's what we're doing. We want to bring that same joy and, experience to kids as well as adults. So,
you can all check out the link to the Kickstarter. I'm going to pop it up in like a pinned comment. It's also in the description of the video already. And over there's also links to your totems page, to your Instagram. Is there any other social media people can follow you on, like Twitter or?
I'm on Tumblr, but not a lot of people follow Tumblr, that I can tell. The Instagram has been great. Facebook, it's Tim Clarke Toys, and there's 2 different Boglin collector sites on Facebook, which I have nothing to do with. I post stuff on there all the time, but I don't run them, and I don't want to run them because I don't want people thinking that I'm, manipulating it. So, so everybody's posting stuff there about their Boglins, and it'll be great when the new ones come out and people can start posting stuff about the new Boglins. And so,
well,
it's all good.
Do you think like a Boglins movie or cartoon series or anything like that is something that could happen?
Yes, we're hoping, but I think that's, a couple of years down the road. But yes, definitely. I've already started writing, a storyline as to where they come from, where they're going, and what they're going to be. So we're hoping for comic book, and I also want to do a book about all the different Boglins and who they are and what they are and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just, if I could be cloned, my life would be much easier. But it's like I'm crazy busy right now. Hopefully things will calm down a little bit after we get into full production, because right now we're trying to gear up as quickly as we possibly can due to the success of the Kickstarter with the factories in China that are going to be producing them. So yeah, it's like I'm getting up at 2:30 in the morning and answering emails from China so to get this going.
Yeah, to make sure they can start the day with the new info. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Tim, I want to thank you so much for taking an hour and 15 minutes out of your day just to talk to me. Yeah. Definitely go follow Tim on all the socials. Check out the Kickstarter. It's going to be awesome. There's some really cool package deals on there when you support it. You can also just support it just because you love Boglins. So definitely go and check it out. Is there anything else you'd like to say to all the Boglin fans out there before we leave?
Thanks for everybody coming out and supporting the Kickstarter. It's been an amazing, wild ride. I'm floored, but it's wonderful, and I'm so glad we're going to be able to do some really wonderful new things. It's great.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's going to be it for this live stream, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. So there we go.